everyone, we are here with Megan. Very excited for this webinar as we will be covering a lot of value. Megan, will you mind introducing yourself a little bit for our audience?
Yeah, hi, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me. Sorry about that. Just 1 second, gotta cut out this audio here.
A lot of value. Megan, will you mind introducing yourself a little bit for our audience?
Sorry about that, guys.
Okay.
So my name is Megan, Crypto Megan on social media. And I am here today to give you guys as much value as I possibly can to explain a little bit about my story so you can identify with me as a new user and somebody trying to learn how to navigate these markets. And just to give you a little bit of background about what I do. I've been involved in crypto and for blockchain for many, many years. In fact, I'm based here in Marbella, Spain. And I did one of the first masters founded by the CEO of Google in Spain at the time to digitize businesses. So that was back in about 2009. And they launched this master as an effort so that was just when the internet was kind of taking off in Spain and people were finally switching from brick and mortar to digital. And they flew somebody out from the blockchain at that time in our class reunion a couple of years later. And that's where the seed was kind of planted. And it was absolutely incredible. It was something that blew my mind. And so I started to look into it. And I couldn't believe what I had seen and the research that I had discovered. And so throughout the years, I had been in touch with it. And then I started to get really into it about 5 years ago. And I started researching really heavy. And actually, I didn't make my first investment until about a year or two after starting to research and study. So that was one of the key points, is that I really focused on getting an education and digging deep and understanding before I even got involved, which I think was a big factor in my success. But at the time, I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have somebody to go to who had information I could trust. I had to dig it all up myself. So after then being really heavy into crypto myself and being an investor also, a couple of years ago, I became I started up my high-end crypto and NFT portfolio consulting for large companies, celebrities, investors, and to help them structure their portfolios, as well as to understand how they could bridge their company from Web 2 to Web 3. So that's what I'm doing. And recently I decided I want to launch a platform, YouTube and social media, to educate newcomers. So they have one place to go with all the information they can trust, and get educated and not have to go through those hours and hours and hours of research and days like I did to discover this value and to understand the way this works. So I have a private group now that I have 3 tiers, and actually the platinum tier is my high level portfolio consulting. That's $1 million entry. And I never actually touch the money there. I just consult for these companies. So that's one layer. And then the second layer is me as a personal mentor and coach. And then the third tier is for people to be able to follow along who want to have access to this research and kind of be guided and coached in this world. And one point I want to make about this whole journey for me, now I'm traveling around the world on a world tour speaking about the Web3 space and opportunities and how to look at the bigger picture, and also advocating for women in crypto, but in Web3. But one of the things that I have to say is when I first started, I couldn't talk to friends about it. I couldn't talk to family. They just didn't understand. And even my husband, I did a lot of this research and digging on my own, and even without him knowing, because at first he thought, what are you doing? Why are you wasting your time on this? This is nonsense. And it's understandable, because a lot of people like him have that view because of the lack of the education. And then once he understood, he started to get really into it. And now, of course, he's 100% on board and so supportive. But the key point I want to make here is, if you have conviction in something and believing in yourself is the way to get forward. And I had this undying, relentless kind of interest. So that's what led me here today. And that's what I hope to provide as a value for all of the viewers.
I pretty much appreciate that you highlight your journey, because I'm pretty sure that a lot of people feel identified with that path. And let's go directly into why people are actually listening to us. They would like to know how is possible for the majority of us to do some profits and returns in a bear market, how you did it. And again, I think that this call could actually give a lot of confidence to traders to just not lose hope, keep trying in the right way and do it in the right, somehow very similar to how you discovered, how you did it. So what I wanted to ask you, Megan, is let's go stage by stage. After, when you were in beer market, what was the first thing you did? How was that journey between, I imagine that first getting stressed, first getting very frustrated about the status of the market, and then figure it out that, wow, it's possible to do return. And that last stage of actually making 62x return. So how was the whole stage? And if you can guide us through the whole process.
Yeah, sure. Like I said, I spent a couple years before I actually did my first heavier investment. And that's what really helped me understand market cycles. And I've been through many bear cycles now. And I really understand the power of market cycles and in mastering your emotions and staying calm during these times. I mean, just for the user, for the people listening now, my confidence has not gone down. I have an undying, confidence that this is the future, that this is where we're headed. And this bear market, it doesn't affect me in that way. It doesn't change anything fundamentally about crypto and about Web3 and about the value that's being provided here. So actually in other interviews I've been asked, oh, let me guess, I guess your first investment was in Bitcoin and Ethereum. And to be honest, it actually wasn't, because I understood early on that I think Bitcoin is an incredible store of value and a means to protect your wealth and to store your wealth. But as far as massing wealth and making those gains, I understood that was better done with projects and altcoins that were up and coming, that were quality, that were actually going to have use cases and make a difference. And so my first investment was in Cardano, believe it or not, at around just under 5 cents. And it was back when nobody was talking about it. Things were dismal, dead to the naked eye. I mean, to people who weren't really in depth in this market. And I just decided, I'm going to go for this because I understand the proposition here, I understand the value. And just so you get an idea of what that could have been now at the peak of this bear cycle this past November, $500 investment would have resulted in about $31,000. So people always tell me, but I don't have thousands of dollars to invest. So how can it make a difference for me? And the answer is it absolutely does. And you can start little by little and dollar cost averaging so that you can actually make an impact with such a small amount of money because we're still so early. So I understood that. And I started investing little by little in the projects that I had conviction in, of course, in Bitcoin and Ethereum, but, drowning out the noise as well, because what people don't see that I see on these world tours where I'm doing, fireside chats with the top people in the industry, like Helen Hai, the senior vice president of Binance, the people behind the scenes, they don't think the way the normal people think. They don't see they're not affected by the media or by mainstream manipulation. What they see is the future and they're acting accordingly. And those are the people who will survive, along with the top exchanges like Huobi, for example, and everybody who has a future vision. So, the key for me was drowning out the noise, having conviction in what I'm investing in and understanding. So education is key. And if you can understand market cycles and master your emotions, you're going to set yourself up for, life-changing wealth.
So. Yeah. And it's true what you said, when you go to, again, international conferences, when you have a one-on-one with big corporations and very recognized projects, you can see that they are not disturbed by the current market. They're so confident in what is coming that for them a bear market doesn't impact their vision. So I do agree with you. Now, what about after you start investing in Cardano and in those potential altcoins that was going to bring you a lot of value? How was your step for sourcing those companies, apart from Cardano, of course? What was your evaluation process? In a bear market, is even when you research a company, you can either be still hesitant about investing on them. So how was that research process and that last bit on your trading plan that tells you, okay, I'm ready to invest? So not only about researching, but also execution now on the technical part.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I'm going to give a little bit of a broader answer just because back then there really wasn't a lot of information. There aren't crypto schools. I had to go to hundreds of sources and 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day listening, studying. And what I was looking for was something that was going to make a fundamental difference or had a fundamental use case that would be around for a long time. And that comes with a lot of practice and a lot of understanding and education. So it's hard to say, this is the process, but that is actually why I created the private group that I have, to be able to give those users access to all of that research, or the people who don't have time to do this in-depth studying. But yeah, that would be one of the criteria, is to just look at the bigger picture and see, is this company solving a fundamental problem? Do they have traction? Will they be around for a long time? Who's behind it? Who's on the team? There's so many scam companies and so much noise to filter through. So I can understand how a new user would be really affected by that and kind of shaken up by that and not even know where to start. So that's one. And so then I just decided to start dollar cost averaging into those companies. I will say one, for example, some of the criteria was, okay, I also wanted to look for a project that hadn't ICO'd. Because I could foresee potential problems with that in the future and regulation. So one of my top holdings that I'll disclose for the users today who are listening is Theta. The Theta blockchain is one of my favorite blockchains, and it's not talked a lot about on YouTube, but I like what they're offering, and also on the DeFi front, which I'll go over at the end. And I'll also get into Celsius and Luna and the reasons why this bull run kind of spiraled out of control, this bear market, spiraled out of control. But so I started investing in those coins and kind of controlling my emotions and not letting fear take over, because, I think we all understand that in order to be successful in this market, you have to be different. You have to see things differently. You have to go against the grain. And there is an element of risk, but what we have to know is you have to know just enough to understand to take that risk. And also, one of the main things I tell people is you can't have a time horizon on when you're going to need that money that you're investing. That's the number one rule. The big picture, the long run, have a 5-year plan. Some people tell me, okay, I'm going to invest X amount, but I need this in about 5 to 6 months. And that's
Doesn't work that out. Yeah.
Does not work that way. Yeah. So,
yeah.
And
when you were choosing those top picks, would you say that you were focused more on the technical part, on how undervalued that project was at the moment, or more on the fundamental side of it, and again, the actual intrinsic value of it?
All of the above. I mean, it's a kind of a mixture of everything. We invest in the most undervalued coins when the risk is greatest to the upside. And as far as giving specific examples of what's behind, I mean, like I was saying, the fundamental use case, undervalued compared to others, because if any of you have been around for a while and you've noticed how this bull run has progressed, there's been certain trends and certain narratives that have been very hot. Like, we had the gaming run and the Metaverse run. And I actually did lecture here in Marbella just the night before Mark Zuckerberg came out and said that Facebook was changing the name to Meta. But guess what? The users in my group and that follow my social media, I was telling them all along, the metaverse is the next big thing. Land and digital land is going to be huge. What we need to do is spot the trends early and get into those trends early and be able to pick them out. Many people, one of the other biggest problems is that they're chasing those green candles, meaning the pumps, and the same people that are lining up around the building to get Bitcoin at 40,000 or 50,000 or 60,000, they don't want to touch it at these prices. And now they're waiting for it to hit some magical number to the bottom side, when in reality, the hardest thing to do in a market is time the bottom. And so it's not what we're here to do. Actually, it's what I teach, is that we just want to get a relatively good entry according to indicators, which I can go over now in a minute about where we're at in the market.
I think that one of the best advices I got when I was first learning how to do technical analysis was, don't try to predict the market or assume what it will do. Try to read it. So instead of predicting where the bottom will be, try to read what is doing it. What can you do about the current status? So about the current bear market, Megan, how are you planning to do 62x or more than 62x in this bear market?
Yeah, absolutely good question. And I just want people to zoom out for a minute, everybody watching, and think about the bigger picture, because a lot of people who come into crypto, they think, oh, I'm going to get rich quick today. And that's not the way the world works, especially not in the traditional market. So we shouldn't, attempt to do that in crypto either. We've been given a golden opportunity here, the chance of a lifetime, really. And the edge is for us right now. The edge is to when the risk is to the upside. And so now we have that edge. We are historically at the absolute best time to buy Bitcoin, according to so many indicators, both on chain and technical analysis. And I do read from all of those to help people, kind of put it into one simple package that they can understand. For example, we're under the 200-week moving average right now, which we have never done in Bitcoin's history. And we've closed almost 1 month below it. And that's, the pi cycle bottom indicator is about to cross. We have so many kind of like overcooked signals, and yet people are still waiting and waiting and waiting. And so for me, it's so easy to miss that and lose sight of that. And when you think about where this is going, to give you perspective, right now we're around 300 million users in crypto. And by the end of the decade, we will onboard 3.4 billion users. And so it's the most rapid growing technological adoption curve since the internet itself. So what does it really matter if you get in now, or if it goes back down to the lows at 17, even 15, versus where this is going, which many of the top industry professionals believe it will be to 1 million eventually. And I do as well. So
I really like something that you said, that we should treat this market with the same respect that we treat other markets. In fact, I remember in one of the first bear markets that we had when COVID arose, that I wanted to invest in S&P 500, and I said, "Is this the bottom? Maybe I can wait a little bit more and invest in a better or have a better entry point." And then when you actually zoom out, you realize, look at the S&P 500 now. So why don't we treat our market, the crypto market, with the same respect and same methodology as we treat the rest? And I pretty much agree with you in the sense of, again, we're not here to invest in the short term, we're here to invest in the long term. So Megan, again, this brings me to the other question. You are heavily investing in Web 3.0 and again, other technologies such as NFTs. But what do you think is going to be the key sector to watch in 2022, 2023? No right answer or wrong answer. Maybe what is your personal opinion on the matter? And again, the people that are watching us right now, please be reminded this is not financial advice. We're just having
yes, of course. Yeah, this is more investment mentality, and that, if you want to be the best, you have to understand these core principles, which is one of the things that Warren Buffett says: you don't have to be right about the timing of the market, just about the business that you're investing in. Timing does not matter. And in the long run, in the grand scheme of things, this is going to be literally a blip on the radar. And I know people get upset when I say that, because there's so many emotions running hot right now. But I truly believe that this is going to be the smallest blip in the grand scheme of things by the end of the decade, when all of these fundamental projects and technologies and things are advancing and developing. So, it's really not going to matter. And we have to actually focus now on staying engaged, getting educated, learning everything we can. And the people who are willing to put in that work are going to be wildly successful in the coming years. And so as far as the next hot trends, I really believe that NFTs are going to be what brings in mass adoption. A lot of people, their first interaction with blockchain is going to be through NFTs. So they're not even going to have a broader vision of crypto or the market or even how it works, which is why I'm pushing so hard for education, because I want them not to get burned. I want them to learn, not have to make the mistakes that I did and go through all of the process of gathering that information. I want to be able to help them to get there and to have this longer term plan, because the people that have that longer term plan, I mean, their success is nearly guaranteed if you have a vision, a 5-year vision or longer. And so NFTs is going to be huge, and digital ownership and property rights, it's going to be freedom, freedom for creators and for people who are interacting to be able to be paid for their time now and interact in a different way. That and DeFi is going to be huge. It already is. And one note on the Celsius problem and all of the the leverage in this market is pretty much what spiraled the bear market out of control, is over leveraged institutions with lots of money on the line. And the problem there was that these institutions were loaned money not based on collateral, but based on their reputation, a lot of them. And so they were over leveraged, and they had this excellent reputation, and it worked in the bull market, but it doesn't in the bear market when things break and when things fall apart. And we've seen that now. And in DeFi, you don't get loans based on your reputation. You get it based on collateral. It's a code instead of human to human interaction. So DeFi is going to be huge. In fact, I think the exchanges are going to all trend toward being decentralized in the future, and less of a bank feeling or a place to store their crypto momentarily, and more of a tool to access crypto. So those two sectors are going to be enormous.
Yeah. Yeah, good point. Now again, I was speaking this with Alex, our previous guest in the program, and he said the same. He said, we are living what we lived in 2008. That's why somehow we will go from CeFi to DeFi at some point. But for me, it would be key to understand right now, Megan, how do you foresee, again, many of the moves in the market this year, not only in the technical side, but what we think that will happen with major trends, such as, again, DeFi, Web 3.0, NFTs. Do you think that we should invest with cold mind on those sectors at the moment? And if so, what do you recommend traders to do at this time? Not only on the emotional part, because you've been very explicit on what we need to do, but more on the technical side and fundamental side. What should be the next critical steps for a trader at the moment, in terms of trading plan, in terms of execution, in terms of, again, market trends? How do you foresee that process for a trader at the moment?
Yeah, at the moment, I mean, of course, not financial advice, but what I am doing when I'm teaching, what I'm coaching on is focusing on accumulating those altcoins, that the softwares, because altcoins, like Kevin O'Leary says, they're softwares. Ethereum is a software. These softwares that can make a massive difference in the upcoming bull run, to get ahead of the trends, to start dollar cost averaging into those, since we don't know. I very well think we could be at a bottom, or very, very close. And even in a timing wise, I think maybe within this month we could be. So with that as a premise, I mean, focus on starting to accumulate those. I'm going heavier on Bitcoin and Ethereum right now, just because the altcoins see much more volatility when Bitcoin has another leg down. So then, I'll focus on those. And as time goes on and the market stabilizes, I'll start getting back into altcoins a little bit heavier and start accumulating for the next run. And right now, there are a lot of NFTs that are on fire sales. And for me, my strategy now is just solely to focus on blue chips. And by blue chips, I mean the top NFT collections in by volume and historically in the NFT market right now. As it says in my bio, I'm a member of the Bored Ape Yacht Club, and I would love to do a segment about that on this show. So drop a comment if that's some of the kind of content you'd like to see, because I'd love to help with NFTs and give my kind of insight on that. I had a meeting with the CEO of Yuga Labs at NFT NYC. Her name is Nicole Muniz, and she's actually a woman, which most people don't know. And her insights and just like the forecast and what they're focused on is incredible. And I want to share that knowledge. So, I mean, focusing on those blue chip NFTs that are highly undervalued right now, when we were on the run up from when I bought my mutant, I bought my first 2 mutant apes at $15,000. And which is almost the same value they're at now, but in ETH terms, they were around 3 to 4 ETH. Now it's about 19 to 20 ETH. And in a span of 6 months, each mutant ape accumulated, or every mutant ape that had gotten in at that time, which a lot of my followers did, they amassed a profit of $160,000 in 6 months. I sold one on the way up and I kept one. And that's another important part of this whole equation is when you're investing and things go up, like right now, we're going to see probably a massive, impressive bear market rally. Taking profits is crucial in bear market, especially in bear markets when you get those rallies, because, we don't know where it's going to head next. And so accumulating little by little, taking profits during those big rallies, what will happen is we're going to have those rallies and people will sell off that are at a loss or just waiting to get back to break even. And until we wash out all of those people, that we're not going to start the uptrend again. in my opinion. And that uptrend will happen toward the end of the year. In my opinion, when the Fed starts to pivot, when they've realized maybe after Q2 that they have controlled inflation enough to where they don't have to do as harsh or hawkish of quantitative easing or tightening, and things start to look up again. So
yeah. I really like what you said, that again, it's critical for a trader to know when to exit the trade. It's actually more important know how to exit, because a friend of mine, a very good mentor, told me, Michela, like, it's not money until you cash out. It's not profits until you actually secure the profits. So I pretty much agree with you. That's a pretty good highlight of this webinar. Now, I wanted to ask you, let's jump into NFTs. Really good topic. You had amazing entries for those apes. So my question to you is, any recommendation, a general recommendation for the people that are listening to you on how to choose those gems in a bear market, specifically for NFTs?
Yeah, that's a good question, because gems are hard to come across. Actually, there's a lot of noise now and a lot of projects and a lot of scams, in fact, which is sad, which is also why I'm trying so hard to educate people, because I don't want to see that happen. But there are, emerging NFTs. There are new NFTs that come out of the bear market. Actually, Bored Ape Yacht Club was one of them. And it's good to focus on those up and coming trends with solid teams behind them that are doing things differently. I think that's the next trend in NFTs, is that they're actually, doing things differently, instead of just being another profile picture or, riding off the backs of things that have already been done. But for me, the most solid strategy right now is not even to focus on those new ones, especially for people with a limited amount of capital to start, because it's an easy way to burn through your capital if you're making all kinds of gambles on new collections. I even actually usually wait until the sweet spot of around 1 ETH to 2 ETH in maybe 0.5 that I see it has traction. I see it has staying power. I see it's kind of like accumulating at that level. And then I go in. So I'm not even concerned about the small gains on the way. So what I would say is to focus on the blue chip collections, meaning Bored Ape Yacht Club, Mutant Ape Yacht Club, which is a part of that, the land from the Metaverse, other deeds. Doodles is incredible. They just hired Pharrell as their creative director, and they're doing insane things. So, and they also have smaller projects, spin-offs of those projects that you can get exposure to that are much less amount of money, like the duplicators. World of Women is highly overlooked. I think it's a really good value at this price. And they have World of Women Galaxy, which is like 0.4 Ethereum. I've watched this market go through cycles. And if you had just invested in World of Women last time at 2 to 3 ETH, it ran all the way up to about 12 or 13. Yeah. And so it's the time to focus on those, because we know that those are the ones that have the best chance of staying power and the best way to preserve capital.
Yep. I love you. I love what you're saying. You're giving so many good advice for the people in the bear market right now. And for the ones that are hearing us, I think that I would like to repeat two things that Megan said that is very important. The first, we're in a bear market, meaning that you need to cut risks as much as possible. And she said specifically, focus on the ones that have traction. Okay, because in a bull market, I agree with you, Megan. In a bull market, we know that almost all collections will go up, or at least 90 to 80% of them. But in a bear market, you need to focus on the actual ones that have traction. So again, for the ones listening, I think that's one of the major highlights of this webinar. The second part that you said is also important. Bear in mind who is the team behind. Okay, not only the traction, but the team behind, and probably the roadmap. Who are they hiring as a creative director, or which valuable personalities and professionals are joining the team? So two major pieces of advice. Anything else, Megan, on that part?
Yeah, also execution. I mean, these teams have, proven that they are executing, that they're actually advancing in their project, that they're doing something to kind of propel the project forward. So there's a lot of NFTs that just kind of die out because the creators, they're not so passionate about what they do, or they hadn't thought it out long term. So I'm focused on those. I'm focused on those that are going to make a difference in the space, and that are going to, one of the first utilities of Bored Ape Yacht Club was being able to draw on the bathroom on the website. I mean, it literally was that basic, but it brought together this incredible community. And I'm actually in a lot of private chats now, and it's incredibly supportive. So this is not only a financial revolution where you can actually gain financial freedom by staying engaged now and following these tips, but also a cultural one. And you can find your niche. You can find that place where you can provide value from your skill set, and anybody can join. I mean, and so now through these networks, I've been able to have access to things I wouldn't ever have access to before. And when we travel the world and we see the apes around the world, they come up to us like family almost, and they introduce us to other people. So it's a network. It's just so much more powerful than just a profile picture. And a lot of people don't get that. So they just think it's a monkey JPEG, you know, but they're actually providing real life value. And it's really incredible to see.
And I think that what you're saying again is a major breakthrough, in which, like, it's not about, it's going to be only a profile picture. It's about utility. How much utility can they actually give users? And I think that that will be the difference between an NFT that can survive a bear market or an NFT collection that unfortunately won't survive and won't have traction. I've been meeting a few people from Rarible and OpenSea, and they say the same. It's not only about the actual art, it's the value behind. So again, Megan, I think that with this, I'm going to start wrapping up because you have provided so much value in here. Definitely, we're going to do a second webinar on this matter. Megan, how can people contact you? How can people know more about what you're doing? And how can people, again, follow your track on this market?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a Patreon group where people can join the 3 different levels I described at the beginning of the stream. Whereas one level is if you want to have access to my research, passive income opportunities, trading psychology, investing psychology. That's a basic point. And then I can do one-on-one coaching, and also the platinum tier, which is for consulting for the larger investments. And I have social media. I'm Crypto Megan on all my social media, on YouTube, on Instagram, Twitter. And I'd love to connect with you there and continue to provide value. And just as a closing statement, what I want investors or people to think that are just starting out is just to zoom out and don't try to make it today. This is like playing chess. And if you can identify these trends, if you can stay engaged, and if you can continue to be in this market and survive, surviving is thriving, and inevitably we're headed into a crypto-centric world powered by the blockchain. So if you can get ahead of these trends now and get ahead of the massive wave of capital that's waiting on the outside, like Kevin O'Leary said, without regulation, there are many people who are not willing to get involved, especially on the institutional end. So if you're capable of investing now, you're ahead of trillions of dollars of capital that's coming. And so just think about that. And when you have anxiety about not making it today, I just want people to be able to zoom out and not get affected by the noise.
There is no better recommendation to conclude this webinar. Again, people are there, zoom out, don't zoom in. And yeah, Megan, pretty excited for our next session already. People, make sure you actually follow her and you follow her journey, her research as well. I'm actually going to do that ASAP after this webinar. And yeah, very excited to keep working with you. And Huobi is glad to have you in here. Megan, all the best.
Thank you. Thank you, Michela. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.